So is the next Aaron Donald in this draft class? That's a wild thing to say, right? Aaron Donald, maybe if you take out positional value, the best player in football. Like, he's in the conversation of just best player in football ever, certainly in the past 20 years. Again, not counting, like, obviously a quarterback. Tom Brady is more important than Aaron Donald, but when you're just talking about, how good he is, obviously he is dominant. So comparing anyone to him is just unfair to that player. It's unfair to Calijah, Kancey, who we will be talking about. But that being said, you can kind of see why the comparisons are here. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is borderline unblockable, it seems, but his biggest concerns, the things people are worried about, is his size. His size is the biggest issue here, which is what makes those Aaron Donald comparisons kind of make some sense. But we're going to talk about some stats, talk about some film. Is the comparison valid, or is it just insane for people to say it? Well, let's get into it. So first, let's start off with some stats real quick. You look at his PFF grades, which again, I feel like I always have to preface this. There's a high correlation to having good PFF grades to being a good NFL player at specific positions. Defensive line is one of those positions. Defensive linemen who have very good, PFF pass rush grades end up being good players. They just do. So for his pass rush grade being a 92.4, those guys basically never miss. I mean, it's really rare for someone who has that kind of a pass rush grade to miss, which is the exciting thing. And you look at his pass rush win rate, and we're talking an absurd 22.7. Now, one thing you could maybe be concerned about is we're talking about roughly 450 snaps of football that we're evaluating this on. His grades were good in 2020 and 2021. He was still, a good prospect just looking at those, but it's really a 1 year kind of, that he's been this Aaron Donald type comparison. Now, another thing worth noting in the run game, not bad. Not a bad run game player, but definitely not quite as good as he is in the passing game. That's where he thrives. He is a pass rusher from the inside who can also just, can also stop the run all right. That's pretty much where he's at. But going over to the film, I mean, you really do see some of these wins so quickly. Like something like this, going up one-on-one against a right guard. The reality is when he had one-on-one matchups, he pretty much just won them. Watch how when this play begins, you see, look at how quickly he was able to get that right arm over the guard's right arm to end this spot. What are you going to do if you're the guard in this scenario? Luckily for him, the ball came out before Cancey was able to get there, but this is what Cancey can do. Is from the inside, he wins these matchups so quickly, and there's a ton of value in that. I mean, we've seen not just with Aaron Donald, who's the guy who gets the most attention, but even players like, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons. If you can get one of those players, that would be incredible. Like this one's another one where, again, it's going to be a one-on-one matchup against a guard, against, the left guard this time. And again, watch his hands. Watch how quick he moves. He's so quick. He can win in a phone booth type of guy, and definitely has a bit of an Aaron Donald tendency to them. Again, Cancey, 281 pounds and just 6'1" is what he's listed at. So definitely something that, again, part of what gets the Aaron Donald comparisons going. Aaron Donald is listed at 6'1", 284 pounds. So, I mean, they're nearly identical list. But again, you can't compare him to one of the greatest interior defensive linemen of all time. But even over here, even his losses, that's one thing I like to look at a lot as well is, okay, you're not going to win every time, but what happens when you lose? And even his losses look impressive. This, again, one-on-one matchup, and watch how he does. I mean, again, eventually the ball comes out before he's able to get there, but I mean, that did not look easy to block him, and that's just kind of the thing that I see when I see him play is he just seems difficult to play against. He does not seem like the kind of guy I would want to block. Granted, I wouldn't want to block most people because I am not an NFL offensive lineman, but still, seems like it would be very difficult to do. The reality is the Aaron Donald comparison, if we're just going to talk about from Aaron Donald as a prospect, forget about what we know about Aaron Donald now, the Aaron Donald comparison is not just like good, it's pretty spot on. Remember, Aaron Donald was a mid-first round pick as well. He was not drafted first overall. He was not the first non-quarterback off the board or anything like that. And kind of the things people say about Cancey are very similar to what they said about Aaron Donald. Of he's this undersized guy. Would that work in the run game? Would that work when you have multiple defensive linemen going up on him? Probably not. But he's so twitchy and so good at generating pressure quickly. Now, the thing about Aaron Donald is a monster in the run game as well. And that's something I don't think people realized was going to happen heading into him getting into the NFL. I also think it's fair to say it's probably not a good idea to try and chase Aaron Donalds of the world because they are so unique and they are so one of a kind that someone like him just doesn't come around too often and it's hard to project. You shouldn't look at the guy who most resembles Aaron Donald. You should just look at the guy who you like the best, right? You don't look at, if there's, for example, if there's two quarterbacks that you like, one kind of plays like Patrick Mahomes, but the other is just a better prospect, you should draft the other guy, right? In this scenario, if you like Jalen Carter more as a prospect, you should still draft Jalen Carter, even though, maybe Cancey closer resembles the best player at that position right now. That being said, I'm really high on Cancey. I think I would draft him very early in the draft. I would draft him with a top 10 pick, absolutely, maybe even higher. I won't give away my actual rankings until we do the podcast on defensive players coming up. That would be, on the 12th is when we're going to be doing that. April 12th, we'll rank the defensive players. So I'll give my list then if you're interested in that. But I really do. I think this guy has what it takes to be a superstar at the NFL level. Listen, we don't know how the weight thing is going to work. And there were times, like I said, he was not a superstar in the run defense in college. So when you get to bigger, stronger NFL linemen, is he going to take a step back? Sure. If he gets double teamed, could he get completely pushed out of the way at times? I could see it. And if that happens, there's real bust potentially, right? I mean, if it turns out that every time you double team him, he just gets completely knocked out of the way, well, then it's almost like he becomes like a third down player where you can't put him in run situations because you'd be concerned that he would just get knocked out of the way and you could run right at him and things like that, which would also wear him out, meaning that he doesn't get his true value in the pass rush game. He is a bit of a boomer bust type prospect compared to some of these other players, and especially when there is, again, Jalen Carter, obviously the obvious one of like, okay, yeah, if he's definitely more of a higher floor player, I think, although there's off the field issues with him, but still, but I do think that to me, the upside of a potential elite pass rusher from the inside. Forget about Aaron Donald. Let's not try to get an Aaron Donald. But if you get just an elite interior pass rusher, the value there is so significant. And we've seen it. I mean, that can completely change the dynamic of a football team if you can get one of those players. And I do think his pass rush stuff is going to work at the next level. I do. I think his hands and feet are next level. I think they're incredible. He's so explosive. And again, the size and the run defense are concerns, but I want to be clear, his run defense isn't bad. It's not elite. It's not his pass rush, and there are concerns about it, but I don't know. He's 281 pounds. He's not 181 pounds. I think that he could be okay. That is a concern, but as a whole, I think the potential benefit of getting him and having him hit is worth the risk, in my opinion. So that's how I view Cancey. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Cancey? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.